Listen, audience, I successfully got Donald to Vegas, and this voice that I have is a result of that experience. I wish I had this voice all the time, actually.
No, you don't.
Yes, I do. I just feel like I'd be more effective in my life.
I don't know that you'd be as successful if you spoke like this all the time, bro.
Well, look at James Earl Jones. He did just fine.
You don't sound like James Earl Jones. You sound like somebody who's sick right now.
No. Donald and I did a lot of singing in Vegas.
Oh, my God. It was like carpool karaoke. The thing is, when you hang out with someone like Andrew Watt, you just, who is an amazing musician and can play any instrument.
He brought his little parlor guitar, one of those little small guitars, like a travel guitar. And anything you start singing, he just can play instantly. And so it was karaoke all the time.
And he could play it in any key also. That's so awesome. Like if you start in one key, he'll be like, all right, hold up 1 second. All right, let's go. He's pretty impressive.
Donald was singing his ass up. Donald, you don't sing a lot.
I mean, I sing.
And I wish you sang.
I sing quite a bit, actually.
Well, our podcast viewers know you sing. But for example, we were with Andrew Watt, for those of you who don't know, super mega producer. He was producer of the year, rock producer
2 years in a row.
And he's an insane guitarist. He produced the new Lady Gaga album that's coming out, Joelle.
That's exciting.
Anyway, so when he came with us, and Bill Lawrence and Charlotte, his daughter, who's dating Andrew, and our friend Randall, and we just had so much fun, and we were just singing, and like Donald and Andrew's playing together was so fun.
It was a lot of fun. I had a really good time in Vegas. I'm
so glad you went. Is there a lesson to be learned?
Well, there's sort of a lesson. This motherfucker said, dude, it's going to be epic. And everyone he said that to was like, yeah, okay, sure. It'll be and we'll have fun. This turned out to be a fucking epic adventure we went on, dude.
Brother, if I promise epic, I'm going to give you epic.
It was fucking epic. All the way from the plane ride to the plane ride back. It was epic. So much so that I'm trying to fight staying awake on the plane back just so we could have conversations still about the trip.
I still feel tired today. I was like, oh, I slept so long.
So did I.
But I learned to play craps because we never really usually play craps. And Donald and I, first of all, Bill Lawrence.
Let's get to
we got to say, Bill, who's so cocky and like his whole thing is like, don't worry, guys. Everything always goes my way. Which is talking about manifestation. It's kind of accurate. He manifests that. He lives that. And shit usually just goes his way. So the dice get to craps, and these guys are teaching me how to play craps. Andrew knows what he's doing, and Donald knows what he's doing, and I'm learning how to play craps for the first time. And then it's Bill's turn to roll, and he's like, don't worry, guys. Things always goes my way.
Now hold up. First of all, when someone says that, that's the ultimate jinx right before craps, right? So we're like, all right, fine. We put money down, and he rolls a 7 right away. Boom, we're paid. Yeah. So we're like, all right, bet. Put a little bit more down. He rolls another 7. He rolled 7 and an 11. He rolled a 7 or 11 out the gate like 5 or 6 times in a row. So much so that the fucking pit boss now comes to the table and is paying attention to everything that Bill is doing, right? So
yeah, and they're asking us if we have those players cards because if you start winning too much, they're like, are you in the system?
Like, how do I know you? Yeah. And so he's throwing, and finally he hits a number. He hits 8, right? And so now we got to put all of our money up on the board and all of that stuff to get. And he proceeds to hit every number except for 7.
Stop.
As he's rolling.
For like a half hour?
No, not for a half hour. For finally he goes, you know what? Let me just roll the fucking 8. Let me just roll the hard 8. And we all have money on the hard 8. He rolls it. Not only he calls it, he does it. And holy shit, everybody got paid. And we're not playing with little money. We're playing with money that makes you sweat. You know what I mean? You sweat.
By the way, Bill was so calm. He had like this superstition that if he started cheering and going crazy with us, like he would fall out of it. So every time he hit the number, everyone would start screaming, and he would just stay totally calm, like he wouldn't even move. He was just like, we're like, why are you celebrating? He's like, just let me be. Let me be.
He's a leader.
Just let me be. And so we get to it for like a half an hour. So he hits it, and then he rolls some more. He hits it again, then he rolls some more, and he hits it again, and we're like, holy shit. Finally, he's like, guys, it's coming to an end soon. So let's not go too crazy. And we're like, dude, this shit is going. And when he said that, immediately, he rolls the 7, and it was like, all right.
He knew.
It was fun.
That's incredible. Wait, can I ask Donald, what changed your mind? Zach, what did you do to get him to go?
He didn't do anything. My wife was like, he's going with
his wife.
She was like, he's going with Bill.
Oh.
Bill is going. And I was like, so? She was like, if this motherfucker creates a deal for Scrubs with Bill and you're not there, I was like, I should go? And she was like, no, hold on, let me finish. In my mind, I'm like, this will never happen, right? This will never, a deal without me there will never happen anyway.
In your mind, we were going to negotiate you out of Scrubs.
In her mind.
Bill, I'd like to do Scrubs.
In her mind.
I'd like to do Scrubs, but without Donald.
That was her mind. Her mind was like, we're going to do Scrubs without Donald. And I was like, babe, that's not going to happen. She said, well, you need to go just to make sure. I said, babe, how are you so untrusting?
She said, secure the bag.
That's what she said.
This is fucked up. I wish I didn't hear this story because I thought it was that you finally came around to the fact that I had put a fun group together and you wanted to be there. And your wife was said, you go, babe, you go have fun with your friends. That's not the answer at all. You all were worried,
I was
worried
not
about being cut out of
worried
Scrubs.
about this. My wife was. When she gave me the green light to go, I was like, for one night, are you sure? She's like, you need to go to Vegas. And then all of the worry went off of fell off of my shoulders. Like all of the weight fell off my shoulders. Because going with my wife is a different story. She wouldn't have had fun at some of the things we did. You know what I mean? But she would have had fun at the craps table. So when I didn't have to worry about that anymore, I was good to go.
Then we went because we were at the Wynn and the Chainsmokers were playing at this at the venue. And Andrew's, of course, friends with the Chainsmokers.
He's friends with everybody. So they lived with him at one point, or one of them lived with him.
He's like, you guys, I don't know if you'd normally go to La Club when we wouldn't at this age, but he's like, we'll be in the DJ booth. You got to experience this. It's crazy on a Saturday night at this club. So we went. And, the whole, thing, security walking us all with them.
Wait, hold up. Before we get there, we got to talk about the suite that they had, too.
Yeah,
they had the Rain Man suite. They had the for real Rain Man suite.
What does that mean?
Do you know?
Just like from the movie Rain Man?
I'm only seeing movies.
Yeah, you remember when they win all of that money and then they get the suite?
No, not the exact one. We're saying one that
epic. So,
of that caliber.
And so we get there.
The kind of suite you get if you're the performer at the Wynn.
Mm-hmm. And so we get there and they're like, come down with us.
That's so fun.
And we go down and we hit the club and the club's outside. And I'm like, oh, this is cool. They got an outdoor club. So we get to the DJ booth and the DJ booth, their back is to the outside club. And I'm like, this is the weirdest thing ever. How are you going to DJ? And I'm looking in this mirror also, right? And I don't see myself in the mirror. And I'm like, this is the weirdest shit I've ever seen in my life. Am I a vampire? No, the mirror wasn't the fucking outside. It was the inside of the club, which was jam-packed all the way to the wall. And that's what the DJ booth is facing.
Yeah. It's 360. It's 360 around. Half is outside, half is inside.
That's so cool.
And it was crazy. I mean, and the funny thing was Donald was the one who was like, I don't want to go to the club. I'm like, dude, just experience being in the DJ booth. Leave after 15 minutes if you don't want it. It'll be crazy. So we go, this motherfucker was up in the front, fucking dancing, going crazy.
Dude, I had outer body experiences while listening to, I guess it's dubstep or R. What is it? R? What the fuck is this shit? All I know is that shit was all. And I was like, I was like, when we leave this shit, I'm gonna have PTSDs. I know.
What is this dubstep?
I don't know what you call it, Daniel. You would know, but it was intense.
Yeah, I mean, they're probably playing some dubstep, some drum and bass, house
What's
music.
This, Donald? What's this, Donald? What
is that?
Probably house music.
That didn't sound like. I remember.
It sounds like a song by Shiba-san.
But the light show was crazy. The light show was crazy. The funniest part was we were in the DJ booth, right? And so there's all these women there that want to be close to the guys, right? Mm-hmm. So at first, when we first got there, Donald and I were in front. We're talking to them. It's like so cool. Little by little, as women started to get more
aggressive,
aggressive, or I'm sure some shots of tequila. they were like elbowing me and Donald the fuck out of the way. Like, let us get close to these dudes. And I eventually gave up. And I was like, all right, I'm going to go to the back where there's a little bit of room because I'm getting like elbows thrown at me because these girls need their selfies. They need their fucking, they need their influencer videos.
I turned to this girl and I said to her, now listen. If I elbowed you the way you just elbowed me, you would be on the floor and you would not be very happy about it. Will you please stop elbowing me? And she goes, oh my God, I'm so sorry. She brings a dude over and I look at the dude like, dude, I promise you, you don't want this, right? And he backs off. And so at first she's chill and I'm like, all right, we're good. And then still, boom, boom, boom. And I was like, all right, you know what? I got to go back. I got to leave because I'm about to throw this. I gave up.
I waved to Donald. I'm like, dude, you can't keep it. It was turned into like a wrestling match. I was like, just come back here. It's safe.
Now, at one point, I was
and they had that dry ice that goes
into everybody's faces.
Then we had one friend. We had one friend that he was overserved, and we realized we had to get him out of there. So we had to. We realized it was time to go because he was.
But he was the MVP of the whole situation.
He was hilarious. Then we once we what do you got? Pulled him out of there. He was double fisted on the way out. We pulled him out of there and brought him back to the craps table, and that was funny.
His whole thing was like, I don't understand. Are they a band? Or are they DJs? What
do they do?
It was a lot of fun.
That was funny, though.
A lot of fun.
A lot of laughter.
A lot of fun and laughter, as my wife would say.
Fun and laughter.
I just want to have some fun and laughter.
We had a sick Chinese meal at Win Lei, I believe it's called, the restaurant.
Delicious.
That was amazing.
Nice.
We should be paid by the win, Joelle. Well, we need sponsorship.
I mean,
I love a Vegas trip. Let's go.
Because Donald and I can talk up of how fun the win is.
Well, not only was the win
only.
fun for one night only, it paid really well.
Well, we can't guarantee our listeners that they'll have the luck.
No, you got to go with Bill Lawrence.
We had Bill Lawrence's magical fingers.
Exactly.
And it's funny. Craps is more fun than blackjack, I think, just because blackjack, I just feel like I always lose. It's just
you complain the whole time. No,
you get 21, and then you're like so excited, and
the dealer gets 21, and you push.
Then the dealer gets 21. They just always seem to win.
The dealer will have if I get a 12, I usually lose. The dealer gets 12 and gets 21. I'm like, what the fuck is going on here, man? How is this consistently happening?
We had this one woman. She said, "I love Scrubs. I used to watch it when I was 10." And we were like,
no, she watched it in reruns when she was 10.
Oh, reruns when she was 10? She said, y'all doing a reboot? We said we might. She goes, is the blonde girl coming back? We're like, we'll see. We'll see.
He's not, we'll see. Come on.
We'll see. Sheesh.
Gotta have Chalky.
See, Donald, we laughed so hard, right?
Listen, I'm not going to lie, man. It was one for the books. It was one for the books for sure.
Yeah.
And I appreciated it too. And I needed it. For distraction reasons and everything, I've been really, really not down on myself, but I turned 50 and this shit is like, it's a new life experience. It's like you try to fight. I'm halfway to the grave. You try to fight that thought. You know what I mean? And this was a moment where I just forgot about everything. And it felt so good just to forget about everything for a little bit, you know what I mean? And I had a great time.
I think the lesson is that you should let me take you on more adventures.
Well, we said we were going to do it quarterly, so I can't wait for the next one.
Well, all right. So if you're wondering why my voice is like that, it's because I was singing and
you were screaming because we were winning at craps. That's why your voice is like that.
I was screaming because we were winning at craps, and also I was doing multiple sing-alongs with Andrew Watt on guitar. And in the club, I was going.
That shit was nuts. What is this? What is it? BDM? What is BDM? Is that it?
It's BDSM.
Was it BDSM? What is that?
Yes, it was BDSM. That's why our voices hurt. We did BDSM.
Is that what we did? We were listening to BDSM?
Yes.
No.
Yes, that's why our voices are sore.
Oh, boy.
Scott Galloway's here. We know he's a very fancy guest. We're so lucky to have him. He spits knowledge like nobody I know.
Most impressive knowledge too, bro.
I asked Joel to get him for us, and he's a very hard get because everybody wants to have him on their podcast, and he said yes to us, so we're very honored. Dan, let him in.
Professor G, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Stories about a show we made about a bunch of docs and nurses and a janitor who loved to hate. I said he's got stories that you all should know. So gather round to hear our Scrubs Rewatch Show with Zach and Donald.
There he is.
What a thrill.
Wait, I'm going to say something to you, but Zach has a question locked and loaded, but you seem so even keel no matter what, bro. What a thrill. I love it. I love your demeanor, bro.
Thanks, man. It's mostly drugs.
Okay, well, there it is.
Thank you so much, Scott, for coming on. The algorithms have figured out how much I love you because most of my feed is you spinning wisdom all over the place, and I know that you have a lot of requests to be on a lot of podcasts. Thank you so much for coming on ours.
We're very honored to have you on here.
It's great to be here.
It's great to have you.
It's great to have you, man. I wanted to, there's so many questions to ask you. I know we have you for a limited time, but we do call ourselves fake doctors, real friends, and coming off of the show. We do try and talk about mental health and we had the Surgeon General on who was talking about loneliness.
Murthy, it's fantastic.
He's incredible. I wanted to just start off talking about some in the area of young men and what they're facing today, the challenges. You've spoken beautifully on this before, and I just wanted to think how do you think what pivots can we make? Because Vivek was sort of talking about the crisis. What sort of changes do you think can be made in society to support men's health and well-being? Because it does seem to be a particular crisis with young men today in society.
Well, first of all, it's great to be with you guys, and I appreciate you bringing sunshine or sunlight to the topic. So I'm not a doctor, but I love data, and the data is just overwhelming. And that is men are 4 times as likely to kill themselves. If you're in a morgue and there's 5 people who've died by suicide, 4 of them are men. And if it was any other special interest group that was committing suicide at 4 times the rate, I'm supposed to say dying by suicide, we'd move in with programs. But because of the 2,000-year head start, people who look and smell and feel like me have had, there's just a lack of empathy because people see empathy as a zero-sum game. And that is correctly, there's a gag reflex when you start talking about the problems men are facing, you come across as anti-women. And one of the key things moving to solutions is we have to recognize that empathy is not a zero-sum game. Civil rights didn't hurt white people. It helped white people. Gay marriage didn't hurt heteronormative marriage. And we aren't going to have women and the country are not going to flourish if men are floundering. 3 times as likely to be addicted, 12 times as likely to be incarcerated. We don't have a homeless, opioid, and suicide problem. We have a male homeless, male opiate, and male suicide problem. Men within 2 years of their divorce become 8 times more likely to kill themselves. Wow. So there are real issues here. 1 in 5 men at the age of 30 are living with their parents. 1 in 3 men has a girlfriend under the age of 30, 2 in 3 women under the age of 30. You think, well, that's mathematically impossible. It's not, because women are dating older, because women want more economically and emotionally viable men, and they're not finding them. How many times have you heard, I have all these wonderful women in my universe, smart, attractive, shit together, but they can't find men? No, they can find men. They just can't find any men they want to date. We're producing the most anxious, insecure, economically and emotionally unviable, obese, anxious generation of men in history, or at least in our country. And, we also need to feel okay about celebrating young men. Young men have fought and won the most consequential wars in history. Young men have built some of the most amazing things in our nation that we're really proud of, or outside of the nation, whether it's the Panama Canal or the Empire State Building. It's okay to fall back in love with the notion of a strong, young American man. And on the far right, they tell men to be cruel and coarse and to be like misogynists. That's not the answer. And on the far left, we tell men the answer is act more like a woman. I don't think that's the answer either. So a movement to solutions. One, just biologically, young men mature at a slower rate. Literally, their prefrontal cortex is 18 months behind a woman's. I would say as a father, my role is I'm a prefrontal cortex. I walk them through decisions like they're supposed to make with their executive functions of their brain. I would like to see us redshirt kindergartners, and that is boys start kindergarten at 6, girls at 5. If you have,
sorry to cut you off.
Go ahead,
I'm
Donald.
sorry to cut you off. I think they do that already in California in the private schools. So girls in
That's right.
Okay.
Well, rich people have this trick. They lie about their son's age and they hold them back. When I grew up in the space race, where everyone thought, oh, the key is to produce super talented young men who will beat the Russians. And so everyone was always trying to get me to skip a grade. I showed up at college when I was 17, and I was just too immature to handle alcohol and women and the responsibilities of being away from them. It was a disaster for me. So now everyone is trying to hold their boys back. And you have to show up at a lot of schools with a birth certificate because people are lying about their boys to try and get them
Really? I didn't know
back.
that.
The youngest boy in a class is more likely to be depressed. He's physically smaller. He's more immature. He's more likely to be bullied. So people have caught on. I'm saying let's formalize it. Kindergarten start, 6-year-old for boys, 5-year-old for girls. More men in primary school education. 70 to 80% of primary school teachers are women. There are more per capita female fighter pilots than male kindergarten teachers. And who is a female teacher going to champion? She's going to champion people who remind herself of her, and that's natural. A boy is, on a behavioral adjusted basis, twice as likely to be suspended for the exact same behavior as a girl. A black boy, 5 times as likely to be suspended for the exact same infraction. And think about what we want from our kids in primary school. Sit still. Be organized, be a pleaser, raise your hand. You describe a girl. When there's boys-only schools, they end up with twice the amount of recess time. They award aggression or more, what I call initiation, more physicality. So we have an education system that's biased against boys. Going further in education, if you're a university like mine, NYU, and you have an endowment over $1 billion, and you're not growing your freshman class faster than population, you should lose your tax-free status because you're no longer a public servant. You're a hedge fund offering classes. We need a ton more vocational programs. Remember wood shop, auto shop, and metal shop?
Yeah, all got rid
gone.
of that.
All gone. All gone.
It disappeared in high school for me because I had it in I had it in elementary school, as a matter of fact. By junior high school, all of that was gone.
Because we all knew that guy who was never going to go to college, but he could fix a car. He was good with his hands. He was the guy they could come over and build the actual treehouse, like actually knew how to build it.
Yeah.
There used to be an on-ramp into an American middle class for that guy. And now it's no longer there.
Why did they get rid of it? I mean, is this budget cuts? I don't understand.
I think we became in love with technology and computer science, so we replaced civics and woodshop with computer science, and that's why we have Mark Zuckerberg. But there's been a de-emphasizing of kind of those, what I'll call more male-oriented on-ramps into trade. So a lot more vocational program. 11% of LinkedIn profiles in the UK and Germany, the title is apprentice. It's 3% in the US. Where do you go? It's like, as parents, if our kids don't get into college, they failed. Have you been to those parties where there's like, oh, Bobby dropped out of Rutgers. He's home. Oh, everyone's failed. The family needs to be shamed. Everyone's failed. 2/3 of American kids are not going to get a traditional college degree, so more vocational programming. I think we need expanded child tax credit. I think we need to stop this economic transfer of wealth from young to old. The average 7-year-old is 72% wealthier than they were 40 years ago. The average person under the age of 40 is 24% less wealthy. 60% of people aged 30 to 34, 40 years ago used to have a kid in their house. Now it's 27%. Not because people decided they don't want kids. They can't find someone to mate with, and they don't have the money.
Money to do that shit.
Yeah.
So
it's expensive.
I got a stack of things I think we could do. I think most of them should be focused on young people, not on men, because I think it'll be politicized.
Yeah.
But I think young people, a reinvestment in young people to lift them up. What are the 2 biggest tax deductions? Mortgage interest rate and capital gains. Who owns homes and stocks? People my age. Who makes their money from current income and rents? Joel and I can't tell how old DJ is.
Daniel.
Yeah, Daniel. So why do I get all the tax breaks? The incumbents and the wealthy have weaponized the tax code to transfer wealth from young to old. And it's been disproportionately impactful on young men who, quite frankly, we don't like to have an honest conversation around mating. If a woman is women made socioeconomically horizontally and up, men horizontally and down. If a guy's not economically viable, he's not going to form a family. He's not going to have romantic relationships. And unfortunately for men, they come off the rails without the guardrails of a romantic relationship. They stop showering. They start demonizing people. They're more prone to misogynistic content. They don't believe in climate change. And some, they become really shitty citizens. Whereas when women don't have a relationship, they tend to do a better job of maintaining their social network. They pour some of that love and that energy into their work and into their existing friendships. Men without the prospect of a romantic relationship or, quite frankly, sex, kind of come off the tracks. Anyways, I think there's a ton of things we could do. I think we fuck this up, we can unfuck it.
What percentage of that falls upon this rise of social media and Zuckerberg of all people, just as a archetype? Is it correct to blame a certain percentage of this on everyone just moving to staring at their screens all day?
Oh, it's been the chaser. It hasn't helped. It's been very hard on girls. I mean, think about Instagram.
It's the fakest shit ever. Sorry, Professor G, but it's the fakest shit ever, man. Nobody's real on that thing. You can't find a real thing on that. And I fell victim to it early too, where I was like, I don't have enough. We said it on the freak. I'm sorry to cut you off, but we said it on the podcast. No. I need more followers. I don't have enough followers. I don't have more followers than Zach. Who gives a shit, dude? It's not.
But also, you're an adult male. I mean, what I assume he's about to say is, do you know what this is doing to teen and preteen girls' minds? We at least can call it out and go, okay, are you really seriously depressed right now because so-and-so's in Europe on a boat and you're sitting on your couch? We at least can laugh at ourselves. The young minds are being so screwed by this. Am I correct?
But it's a false sense of wealth, and it's a false sense of happiness when you watch that shit. And all of these people think, I need to do that to be happy. And it's like, no, dude, that is not the answer. You're not going to be happy. I mean, I might be happy on a boat and in the middle of, San Tropez. Yeah, sure. But you're not. That's not gonna make me have a great life because I'm doing that.
It's the constant comparison of yourself to somebody.
Yeah, there's two types of porn. I think Instagram is essentially a porn site. And there's two types of porn. There's wealth porn, where I'm trying to shove my faux, oftentimes fake. By the way, anyone who's really wealthy doesn't go on Instagram to talk about their wealth. If you're taking pictures of a jet, it means it isn't yours. And right?
Yeah.
So there's shoving your success in other people's face, and they're not inspired by it. They just feel worse about themselves. And then there's actual porn. And that is the algorithms sexualize young girls. And think about just how fucking perverted Instagram is. I'm going to use an algorithm to encourage a 15-year-old to dress more and more provocatively, such that strange men from around the world and her peers can comment on her looks. That is just so wrong and so weird. And then the algorithms also love rage. I'm in marketing, and we thought, from 45 to 95, we thought sex sells. Show an aspirational vision of sexual attractiveness and attach it to a beer or product that sells. What we found is there's something that sells more than sex, and that's rage. So try and get people to start arguing each other. Zach, your last movie sucked. Donald, you're not living up to your obligations as a black man. No one would ever say that shit to you in person, but they want you to fight. They want you to start shitposting each other. And the algorithms love that because then it gets more comments, more Nissan ads, more shareholder value. So you have these algorithms that are training everyone to be coarse, less empathetic, sexualize yourself if you're a young girl. And if you're a young man, you can go down these rabbit holes and maybe you can't find a date. Well, there's a bunch of groups on Discord and Reddit that will tell you it's women's fault. That it's not your fault, it's their fault. It's immigrants who are taking your job, right? And so in addition, to top it all off, and I see this with my son, who's 14, as his brain is being wired, it's being wired to have a dopa bag that he can squeeze whenever he wants. right? And I think of our jobs as parents as what I call slopa, to try and convince them to get the immense dopa hit you get when you study hard and you get an A in biology. That's like hugely rewarding. To save some money, to work, save some money, and then you have a little bit of money to go to college. That felt really good for me when I went to UCLA, that slow dopa. But unfortunately, they have this casino, porn site, iPick theater, slot machine in their pocket at the age of 13 or 14. And just as their brain is being wired, they're learning, I need dopa now, I need dopa now. And I see with my kid goes, I'm not proud of this, my kid will go into the bathroom with his phone so he can be on TikTok, and he won't come out. He'll pretend that he's in there for an hour, and he'll scream, I need privacy. And I'm like, you're on TikTok, you're not fooling anybody. And then when he gets out of there and we take the phone away, he so badly needs a reaction and more dopa, he starts acting out and being a really difficult.
Donald deals with this with his kids.
Oh my God. And it's YouTube, and it's because we don't have TikTok. So they found YouTube, and now YouTube plays TikTok videos, right? And I can't get my kids to sit down to watch a movie anymore because it's too long, pretty much. You know what I mean? Shows that are like 10 minutes, that's about enough time for them to say, okay, I like that show. Let's go to the next. What's next? But if a movie is 2.5 hours, they can't make it through. I want to go do something else. I want to do, you know what I mean? The only way it works is if you take them to the movies. And it's like, wait a second.
You're so right, Don. Last weekend I said, I just want you guys to watch some movies that I loved growing up. So I said, we're going to watch these 2 movies this weekend, Breaking Away and Cinema Paradiso. I'm like, I love these movies and I want you to watch them with me. Kids couldn't make it. They lasted 40 minutes.
That's it.
That was it. That's it. They couldn't get through it.
It's the worst feeling ever, too, because you feel like as a father or as a parent, I'm failing my kid. You know what I mean? I'm definitely failing my kid, because my kid, not only does my kid all of a sudden turn into this monster after we take the screens away, you know what I mean? I don't necessarily know how to combat that either, man, because I'm the one that did it to him by giving him the device.
We're all addicted to our screens, so we give them their screen so we can go back to ours.
Scott, there was this movement to almost ban TikTok. I assume because it's owned by the Chinese government or controlled by the Chinese government. And I actually thought that was going to happen for a second. Not that these companies will self-regulate, but do you think there's any world where they're more responsible for not allowing people under 16 to be on them in some way?
No, we keep hoping that their better angels are going to show up, and it just doesn't happen. They're doing their job. We're not doing ours. Their job is to make money. And, the cigarette guys stood in front of Congress and raised their right hand and said, I don't believe nicotine is addictive.
Yeah.
When you are paid not to understand something, you'll get really good at not understanding it. And so when you're making billions of dollars and having billions of impressions from young people and rage and divisive content, you're going to find reasons to not understand what's actually going on. We've had 40 congressional hearings on child safety and social media. We've had 0 laws passed. We have never had an industry this big and this powerful that has no regulation at all. There's more regulation in the mic you guys are speaking into than all of social media. If there was any 24%, a study just came out, 2/3 of kids are on Instagram. 24% of them technically qualify as addicted. What substance or content would we let 24% of our youth be addicted to and not move in? And they weaponize, they're very smart. They go on media and say, we're open to regulation. And I have children. First off, most of them don't let their children have smartphones. And 2, they have an army of lawyers getting in the way of any regulation. Amazon has more full-time lobbyists living in D.C. than there are sitting U.S. senators. And it's happening again with AI. We hear the hushed tones of Sam Altman. He's very concerned about AI and its potential problems. And then he deploys an army of lobbyists to make sure there's no regulation. So these guys are doing their job, and it's mostly guys. They're making money, and that's an important part of the capitalist economy so we can have taxes and pay for our Navy and pay for food stamp. They're doing their job. We're not doing ours. In every other industry, we have elected people who are supposed to prevent a tragedy of the commons and pass laws. There's no reason any kid should be on social media under the age of 16. And we ask them to self-regulate an age gate? No. We're hoping Tim Cook wakes up and decides he should not let anyone have an iPhone until they're 16. It's not going to happen. We need laws. And
do you think it's because? I'm sorry to interrupt. Do you think it's because of the age of Congress? Would a younger? I mean, I know this. I don't know if this is going to happen because they all seem to be skewed so old. But they never. Whenever I watch those hearings, they never seem to know what the fuck is actually happening.
They have no clue of what's going on.
It reminds me of that senator back in the day who was like, "The internet is a series of tubes," and trying to describe the internet. And I wonder, do you think that would help? Are they just clueless or are they paid off?
Yes.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. Professor G, no doubt.
The average age of Americans is 38. The average age of our elected representatives is 62. Our top leaders are a cross between The Walking Dead and the Golden Girls. I mean, think about this. The Speaker of the House, who's an incredibly impressive woman, when she had her first kid, Castro had just declared martial law, and 2/3 of households did not have color TVs. But she's supposed to understand the challenges facing a single mother in her 20s. She's supposed to understand a young man who's addicted to gambling and now trading crypto on Coinbase. So I'm not suggesting we can't benefit from older politicians, but for God's sakes, it's like, we need more youth.
But not crazy youth either, though, because some of these the youthful politicians get in there and they're so fucking far on one side or so fucking far on the other side that their ideas and their policies, as an adult, I can't fuck with that.
Those are the loud ones, I think, getting the most attention because they've marshaled these social media devices to, like he's saying, rage bait. They know how to get the attention. Whereas there is a world out there where there's some centrist young politicians who could help maybe make Congress not the Golden Girls.
Well, you have the Squad, and then you have Marjorie Taylor Greene and.
Right,
I forget the name. Who's the wrestler? I forget the guy's name.
Matt Gaetz. Matt Gaetz.
Not Matt. He's not a wrestler. That guy's beer battered. He's not in good shape. But what we have is because of gerrymandering and because of money, we no longer have politicians or lawmakers. We have performers.
Yeah,
and that is if Marjorie Taylor Greene goes on and says that it's Jewish space lasers or that these people are acting like. Jews not. I mean, she says the most incendiary things, but TikTok takes it and loves it. And there's an element of the far right that likes her calling out the other side. They're not there. They don't want lawmaking. They want someone to tickle their sensors and make them feel good about making the other side look really bad. And they go on TikTok and then they raise a lot of money through small dollar donations and then they get realected. And most of these folks have never passed, many of them have never passed a goddamn law. They don't
It's
kind
of like pro wrestling. It's like, you remember when the pro wrestlers used to do the interview before the match and I'm the Hulkster and
I'm going to put you in a chokehold with these pythons.
Right. That's kind of like what I see all those extreme politicians on both sides who try to get the most attention. It's like they're saying outrageous things to, like you say, get small dollar donations and can't be defeated, right?
Yeah, it's like there's gerrymandering. I mean, here's the thing. We now have minority rule. The majority of Americans believe in bodily autonomy. The majority of Americans believe in some sort of gun control. But 20% of our population has 80% of our senators. And because politicians like to be reelected, they've gone through and redrawn the maps and they've turned everything hard blue or hard right. So the general election means nothing. It's all about the primary. So when the general election is the Republican or the Democratic primary, depending on whether your district is hard blue or hard red, all we're doing is sending fucking crazies from the left and the right because the primary is all about who can be more conservative, who can be more progressive. And there's no way for moderates to get elected. So we just don't have a representative electorate now. The majority of people are somewhere in the middle. The majority of people are like, okay, bodily autonomy. Yeah, people need access to family planning. Does that mean you should be able to have an abortion in your third trimester? Maybe not. Okay, but that doesn't happen. But let's have a conversation about it. Most people can come to some sort of consensus. Should you have the right to bear arms? Yeah, but should you be able to pass a mental health check? Should you have registration? Should you be occasionally visited by a local official? I mean, in England, there was a mass shooting in, I think it was Dunblane, 17, just awful, right? And within a week, the MPs passed legislation to ban assault rifles. The same thing happened at after a mass shooting in Australia. Seems pretty reasonable. And since then, there's been no mass shootings. It's like we claim that we have this unique problem that's unsolvable and the only country that has it. I'm living in London, and one of the things I love about living there, free gift with purchase, bodily autonomy, trans rights, guns rights, they're not even conversations.
It's just a way of life.
It's like, it's just okay. Should trans issues dominate the political discourse? Do people have to have third bathrooms in every organization? No, we're not going to let it dictate our politics. But at the same time, leave them the fuck alone. Like, okay, why do you need, we're not going to demonize them. Just leave them alone. There's just, things have gotten so, I think the biggest threat in America, I'm really going off script now, is not income inequality. It's not climate change. It's extremism. And that is the people we send to make our laws generally can't stand each other. And their worldview is not an American view where we want to get along and come together. It's representing a fringe that is totally out of touch with the rest of America and just is quote unquote principled, but not pragmatic. And as a result, this is the least productive Congress we've had in history. There are no laws. We can't even pass a budget. The only thing they come together on is the far left and the far right will come together for reckless spending. You want more defense spending and we want to cut taxes. You want more social services. I know. Let's just run up young people's credit card and spend $7 trillion on $5 trillion. Bipartisan, reckless spending. Whenever the far left and the far right agree on something, you know it's a really shitty idea. And they do come together around stuff. But the polarization in our society, largely driven by our rage, some people have been totally forgotten, left behind, the gerrymandering, money in politics, and then social media that rewards that polarization. There really isn't. Go on someone's Twitter feed and say, that's a thoughtful comment. I need to think this through. That doesn't get a lot of likes.
No.
That's not, it's
amazing. It's amazing. I went on, I'm off Twitter now just because I just can't believe the Wild West that it's become.
That is rage, cage rage.
It's just crazy. It's like a steel cage match. But it is funny every once in a while to lurk and see exactly what you're saying. It's like who can out-snark anyone? If you do happen to stumble across a picture of like, look at this beautiful flower, people are like, that particular breed of strain of flower is ruining this bug's existence and it should be. I mean, you can't find. It's just a steel cage match at all times. I mean, Twitter's become like the most, extreme version of that in my eyes.
Here's a perfect thing.
Yeah, I'm off of it.
Yeah, I got off of it a long time ago too. I don't even have a login for it anymore. Check this.
And you become where you spend your time. And I noticed I was becoming terse, looking for opportunities to make people look stupid. I like Twitter. I would wait till someone said something indelicate or inartful and weigh in. And I got my Guardians of Gotcha pin, right? And I got to cede the moral high ground because I was right and what you said was stupid. And then I realized I am becoming an asshole. And I just got off of it and said, I don't need to be up in everyone's grill and saying provocative things just to get more likes. And I struggle with anger and depression. And I'm like, I found too many people like me on Twitter. And I thought,
I agree. That's why I got off of it too.
This is not the gang I need to be a part of, right? So I'm off of it. I don't like the way the owner acquits himself. But you have to, but like you said, I can modulate it. I don't know if my 14 and 17-year-olds can modulate. When we look back on this time, Donald and Zach, we're going to regret what we did. We're going to regret the weaponization of our elections. We're going to regret the coarsening of our discourse. We're going to regret the income inequality. But more than anything, we're going to go, how did we let this happen to our kids? That'll be our biggest regret.
So if there's plenty of parents listening, can you just give them advice on that? I know especially parents who don't yet have kids addicted to it, who it would be hard. If you've got young children, is your advice to keep them off social media until they're 16?
Well, first, I just want to acknowledge that anyone who says it's a parenting problem doesn't have kids, because I've written books on big tech. I speak a lot about it, supposedly knowledgeable about it. my son struggled with device addiction. Hands down, the number one source of tension and anxiety in my household, and this is somewhat of a story of privilege, is that damn phone. Mm-hmm. It is 50% of the arguments between my kids and me, between my wife and me, are about that fucking phone and its relationship with our kids. And the problem is the collective problem. And that is, if you don't ban it for all 16-year-olds, your kid's going to be more depressed. And there's research on this because he or she will be ostracized from their friends because this is how they communicate. This is how they get their homework. So unless we have collective action where schools ban phones and social media is outlawed for people under the age of 16, I think the best you can do is modulate it. There are parental tools that the platforms make purposely exceptionally difficult because they don't want you to use them. They want to pretend to have them. They want to say we have them. Go on, unless you have a master's in computer science from MIT and UX design, can you actually figure out how to use these things? But there are tricks. If you put all your kids on the same phone plan, you can shut off their wireless. Like when I really want to go gangster, I shut off their wireless from their phone. And all of a sudden they become they become wonderful children until I turn it back on.
Exactly. That's the best.
Donald, you should do that.
It's the best. Well, look, when we, and I find myself bartering and negotiating with my kids over it. And it's the worst thing ever. Like, you're absolutely right. Maybe there is something in this. I like, to collect data for myself because everything that you said just now, Scott, is absolutely true. My wife and I we don't argue about shit that the shit that they argue about in the movies. We argue about the phone and what it's doing to our kid. And my argument is, well, let's just take it away. And then she's like, but they're our friends and they're so, and it just goes, and then and you talk in circles about it too, because you hear the other person's argument in the situation and you agree with a lot of it, but some of that shit doesn't necessarily apply to your kid. The worst thing, I feel personally, the worst thing that ever existed, created, was the internet. And when I look at it, it's great for information for me, and it's great to find the information, but all it's doing is it's making my kid not necessarily smarter. My kids don't necessarily have normal conversations anymore. They talk like the fucking characters on their screen. And it's like, I can't take them off of it because I'm addicted to it as well. You know what I mean? And so it's like, who am I to take it from you? It's just, and it's a circular conversation that consistently goes like this. And I can't stand it. It's the worst feeling to think I'm failing my child because of something I've done, and I can't control what I did because I need it too.
Well, so I do believe that if we had a red button to push, do you remember that Twilight Zone? They did a remake of it in the 90s where this family, it was the guy who was in a great movie called Midnight Express. He shows up and him and his wife are struggling with money. And this guy shows up and says, if you press this button, someone you'll never know or never meet will die. And you get $10,000. Mm-hmm. And then at the end of they press it, they get the $10,000. And the guy shows up and takes the box and says, where are you taking the box? And said, we're going to deliver it to someone you'll never know and will never know you. And if you had that red button and you could press it and all of the internet would go away, I don't think we'd press it. I think that we're net gainers on the whole from technology. Now, the problem is with the word net. We're net, in my belief, in my view, we're net gainers from fossil fuels, but we still have emission standards. We're net gainers from pesticides, but we still have an FDA. Social media, there's a lot of good on it. TikTok has a lot of interesting videos, email, my phone.
I learned how to cook on TikTok.
There you go. The kids who work for me at Prophecy Media, they're warriors with better weapons than I ever had. They're more productive. They're making more money. They're growing the economy. These things create shareholder wealth. They create great jobs. My son is raising money on TikTok and learning AI so he can go to Rwanda and build a school. There's some amazing on a net basis. We're beneficiaries from big tech, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't regulate it. That doesn't mean we should say, okay, if you're spreading misinformation and you know you're spreading misinformation or disinformation, And kids start killing themselves because your algorithm will sense they're having suicidal ideation and start sending them emails saying, here's some images on suicide you might like. There should be a world of hurt for those executives. Somebody needs to show up in an orange jumpsuit. So I would argue we're net gainers, but we have to have some regulation, and we have to have thoughtful younger people who understand this technology making laws. But waiting for their better, and this comes back to your question, Zach, waiting for the better angels of Mark Zuckerberg to show up, don't hold your breath. Yeah. These people are doing their job. We're not doing ours, and that is to elect people who will prevent a tragedy of the commons and think long term, understand these technologies, and create laws that make it easier for us as parents and as citizens.
I want to ask this question. It moved me when I heard you say it, because all it did was make me think about my wife and how wonderful she is and how supportive she is of my career. And then when the highs are up there, oh my God, it feels so good to be able to share that with her. But you said something about how the most important decision we make in our lives is who we choose to have as a spouse. Is because, you know, you experience something together, and the feel of love and even the feel of sorrow. If you have somebody there to support you, or you can support somebody, there's that dopamine that you were talking about earlier. You know what I mean? Can you just comment on that, please? Because it's something that's so fucking amazing. I think a lot of people need to hear this.
Yeah, but let me start off by saying, I don't think you have to have a romantic relationship or married to be happy. I know a lot of people who are very happy without that. They find other places to give and receive love, especially women. Men without a romantic partnership have a really tough time. Now, having said that, the context I was saying that in was economically. The majority of wealthy people have built their wealth with a partner. And because the team is just so powerful, both in terms of your ability to share expenses, be supportive of each other, be a trusted advisor. And, I didn't want to get married. I didn't want to have kids. I loved living in New York, having a little bit of economic security. I'm like, why would I ever give this? I'm going to ride this whole single dude with the perception of wealth thing out. I was really enjoying it. And
I'm still riding it far too long.
You're still there? Yeah. I think, if I could just be you for 1 week and a month, it'd all be great.
Right?
But on the whole, if you look at happiness, the majority of really happy people are in something resembling a monogamous, committed relationship. Now, what I see across my friends, I have friends who are hugely successful across all dimensions, but they don't have a partnership with their partner. And there's just a level of anxiety and stress in everything in their life. And then I have other friends who are, they do fine, but they're not what you call ballers, or from an exterior perspective, that successful. But everything burns a little brighter because they have a great partner. The most important decision you make, and unfortunately, a lot of times it's out of your control because who they evolve into and how if you want to be economically successful and happy, you're going to have to bring generosity and forgiveness to a relationship. And you're going to also have to put away the scorecard and just decide what kind of friend, what kind of son, what kind of husband do I want to be? Because you will always inflate your own contribution to the relationship and diminish theirs. And you end up, when you keep score, you end up upset and angry and end up injecting bullshit into the relationship where it doesn't belong. But if you can figure out a way to find a competent, loving partner that you're attracted to, and then really go all in on it, everything, I love having kids, but what's profound about it is raising kids with someone, I care about. I've made a lot of money. It's hugely rewarding. You know what was more rewarding? It was building economic security with a partner. It was high-fiving each other. Fuck, we can buy a house.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I remember that.
Do you realize how much this hotel room is costing us? Isn't this awesome? We built this shit together. That is so rewarding. Zach, it sounds like you will never understand that reward, but
I'm trying. Listen, I'm sitting here listening to you. Fuck you, Don. I'm sitting here listening, nodding, going, I want that. I'm totally on board for it.
That's the curse of good hair, a deep voice, and a little bit of fame.
Yeah.
You got your question isn't who to partner with, it's who not to partner with this weekend. Hello, ladies. Hello.
All right. And I think we got a little bit more time. Can you talked about a number and the age you were when your number was $1 million, and then it turned to 10 million, then it turned into. Can you explain that also? because that's something.
Sure.
Also, I'm trying to.
No, now you're going to get a third question?
Dude.
Jesus Christ.
We got him on the show. We might as well ask, bro.
I know. All right. Well,
okay. The third question is, so I agree. I feel like I'm never going to make money just being a worker at one thing. The way to expand is to be an owner in some way, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are ways for people out there who can't understand that? What is a in layman's term? Can you just explain that to people and what you said?
I think,
yes,
can I help you? I think what you're saying is, one of the things that we both commented, we said is the difference, and you articulated, and we could articulate it in layman's terms, the difference between just being someone who's chronically just a worker getting a check and actually having a chance to earn real wealth, not just a paycheck.
Look, I think America becomes more like itself every day. And that is, it's a loving, generous place if you have money. It's a rapacious, violent place if you don't. I'm not talking about what America is or what America should be. I'm talking about what America is. It's especially important for men. And because women are disproportionately evaluated on their looks, it's totally unfair. Men are disproportionately evaluated on their economic viability, which is also unfair. But that's the reality. If you're a young man, you need to have a plan for economic security. And by the way, women are doing a better job of that plan, and it's wonderful. And we shouldn't do anything to get in the way of it. But too many young men don't have a plan for how they're going to be economically viable. And one of the things in my book, I go through how to develop a plan, how to think about it, the behaviors and the strategies. But I liked having a number because I could say, okay, $1 million sounds like a lot of money. But if I can save 5% of my salary, by the way, automated savings, get it out of your hands, taken out of your check. 99% of us will spend all of our money that comes through our hands because the smartest, most deepest resource people in the world are going to serve you with opportunities 200 times a day to upgrade from economy to economy comfort. And why wouldn't you stay at Las Ventanas for the girls' weekend? And why, oh, wait, would you like to add flourless chocolate cake to your order from Balthazar? You will get hit with opportunities every day to spend everything. But if you save 3 to 5% of your salary from the age of 22, you're going to be a millionaire by the time you're my age. And then even if you're in your 30s and you haven't done that, if you can save 5 to 10%, you're going to be a millionaire. So you need a plan for economic security rather than just hoping you're going to go double platinum or start a big podcast or get a movie deal. You need a plan in case you don't hit it big. And so the answer is, I know how to get you rich. The bad news is the answer is slowly and with a certain amount of discipline. I always had a number because I was raised by a single immigrant mother who lived and died as secretary. My household income was never over $40,000. I was like one of 3 or 4 guys in my fraternity, and everyone knew us that didn't have any money. And every summer, if I didn't make save $3,000, I wasn't re-enrolling at UCLA. And a lot of good came from that, from grit. But when I started my career, I didn't want to be a better person. I didn't want to change the world. I wanted fucking money, a lot of it. And I noticed that I had some very shocking and rattling things happen to me. My mom got terminally sick and I couldn't take care of her to the extent I wanted. It was humiliating and emasculating. And so from a very early age, I was really economically focused. And I thought if I could get $1 million, it'd be fine. Then I got to $1 million and I lived in New York. I'm like, $1 million? I can't live in New York with a couple of kids on $1 million. So I went to 10 million. And then I went bigger than that. And I'm very open about my finances. I passed 100 million 7 years ago. I'm hugely privileged, hugely lucky. And by the way, I'm not humble. I'm a fucking monster. I'm ridiculously talented and ridiculously hardworking. Right. But I also got really lucky and appreciate the fact that for the majority of my life, all prosperity was crammed into this corner called white, straight males. So I appreciate that. I nod to it, and I'm trying to make sure that the drawbridge is down for other people. But personally, once I got to that number 7 years ago when I sold my last company, I'm like, I'm going to go raise more money and start a private equity fund because Scott Galloway billionaire just has a nice ring to it. I thought, I want to be a billionaire. That shit's going to be sexy. That shit is going to be sexy. And then I thought, okay. And then I had a close friend pass away and I'm like, what do I really want in life? I want a series of amazing experiences that make me feel closer to the people I have relationships with. And I thought, do I have enough money to do that? And the answer is yes. And I thought, well, why am I going to get back on this hamster wheel I've been on my whole life, trying to make more money at any cost? And now what I do is the following. I have my number. I sit down with my wealth managers at the end of the year. They tell me what my wealth is and what I made that year. If it's above that number, I either spend it. I love spending money. I'm spending money like a gangster in the 50s diagnosed with ass cancer. I love spending money. And I'm really, really good at it. And I think there's some nobility to it.
Come to Vegas
Go to nice restaurants. Go to nice restaurants, tip large, fly your friends to Aspen. It's a capitalist society. It is so much money to spend money and spend it well. And then anything above that, I give away because it makes me feel masculine. It makes me feel like a baller. It makes me feel very American. And that is so rewarding because I tell you, I could very easily be at a private equity firm right now, aiming for the billionaires club, taking huge risks, having a more strained relationship with my spouse and my kids, trying to get to a number that makes absolutely no goddamn difference. And the reality is, and all the studies on happiness show this, above a level where you get economic security, can afford a nice home, take nice vacations, manage a health crisis, get your kids into good schools. And by the way, that's a shit ton of money. But once you get to that point, anything above that provides almost no incremental happiness. Money can buy you happiness. Middle-class homes are happier than lower class. Upper-income homes are happier than middle. But billionaires are no happier than millionaires. They're no less happy. That's also a myth, but they're no happier. So why, once you get to a place of economic security, wouldn't you just enjoy the shit out of spending it, deepen your relationships, and start giving it away? It is so rewarding. And it was one of the, other than finding my partner and deciding to have kids, which I didn't want to do, I didn't decide, she decided. But other than that, my approach to money the last few years, and this is a problem of privilege, I want to acknowledge that, but getting off the hamster wheel, recognizing money is the ink in your pen, write different stories, make stories burn brighter, but it's not your story, is so rewarding. But for me, it was having a number. And not only was it aspirational, but it told me when to stop and flip to being more generous and more focused on my relationship and experiences. Because I would still be on that wheel trying to get a B in front of my name.
Listen, I've done very well for myself, and I'm very, 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 very happy with where I'm at. I always feel like I could use a little bit more, though. You know what I mean? I don't know if I haven't reached your number yet, but yet. But I enjoy my kids. I enjoy one of the best feelings in my life was recently buying a house after losing pretty much all the money I made while making Scrubs. Due to bad investments and poor business decisions, whether it be manager or myself. I thought at one point I'll never buy a house again. And you're right, it does feel a mask. It feels like somebody cut my dick off. You're absolutely right. But the day I said to my wife, we can buy this house, it felt so rewarding. And you're right, the high five was so hard. The sex was so good that night. Because we were able to, because she was in the struggle with me.
Was it good for you, Zach?
It was amazing. I was only allowed to watch from the corner, but I did ejaculate.
There you go.
That's too much. That's too much.
He's a urologist on TV. You can say that.
But that you're absolutely right, Professor G. That was
all right. We got to let the professor go. We've had him for an hour, but the latest book is The Algebra of Wealth: A Simple Formula for Financial Security. And you also have a couple of podcasts. Do you want to mention those, Scott?
Yeah, To Resist is Futile. I'm everywhere, Zach. I'm like AOL in the 90s. If you stick your hand in the cereal box, you're going to pull me out.
With us? Did you just go bored with us just now? Resistance is futile? Is that what you just said?
That's right.
All right, Shun.
I'm everywhere. So
what are your you have two podcasts.
Prop G, Pivot. I just launched a political podcast with Jessica Tarloff. She's the lone Democrat on the show, The Five on Fox. And I write books. I have a newsletter called No Mercy, No Malice. So yeah, just type in my name.
And the last thing I want to say about you is if you're listening and you only have 20 minutes, watch Scott Galloway's TED Talk.
Thanks, Zach.
It's pretty incredible. And I love that so many people that do TED Talks, you can tell they're nervous because it is nerve-wracking. You just look like you're the most baller, badass guy. You're like, look, I only have 20 minutes, so I'm diving right in. I got 100 slides. Let's go. And it was amazing. I really enjoyed that.
I appreciate that, and you were fooled. I felt like I was going to throw up. I was hugely nervous, but thank you.
Well, you held it together, man.
Thanks, man.
For those that don't know, you don't have teleprompters on a TED Talk. You do it, or you do it right, or you fuck up. And I thought you were amazing.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate it. Congrats on both of your success. Well done, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, man.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for coming on. Wow, he's so smart.
Yo.
I just want to listen to him talk all day long.
How did we do this? How did we get him on the show?
I asked a long time ago, and I know just from seeing him on very, very, very popular podcasts that he's very hard to get. So I asked Joelle to like try hard, and then she got him.
That was amazing, man. And I hope you guys out there learned something today, or at least were able to open your mind up a little bit. Like, because, you know, it's rare that we at Fake Doctors, Real Friends have people like this on our show. You know what I mean? It was really amazing.
Daniel, what are your thoughts? What do you think, Daniel?
I think he's a very smart guy. You know, I think his takes are, I think it's just a very good, honest look at the world. And I think it's an important take. I also think it's imbued with a little bit of humility about being, willing to change and being willing to look at the world and admit that some things are not as you perceive them, and also not as they used to be. I think you spoke a lot about that with how, Congress is full of people that are old. There needs to be a progression for us to move forward in everything. We have these great phones that we all love. We need laws around them, and that is just normal. And I thought that was something that I really appreciated about what he was talking about.
I hope that one day that there's a younger Congress that can get their head around that. It seems to me that because of the average age of the people in Congress, that it's not something they fully understand or see why regulation is so necessary for children.
I'm not very astute when it comes to politics and laws being passed, but when was the last time that not the Supreme Court, but Congress and the Senate were able to agree on a law?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, it was probably the last budget, I guess. I mean, they pass stuff
outside of the budget. They don't.
Yeah. Well, I'd have to look up. I do not know.
Nothing. I don't know.
Then what are they doing there? What are they doing there then? Yeah,
arguing.
Just fighting.
They just argue. They argue and then cock block. Kind of like you and Vegas.
I did not cock block in Vegas, bro. I had a great time.
That was really interesting. Thank you, audience. I know this wasn't the funniest of our podcasts, but it was super informative, and I hope that you liked it. Again, check out his TED Talk. It's pretty impressive, and he's so smart.
He has great ideas on accumulating wealth too. So just, if that's something you're into.
Not only does he have the algebra of wealth, but there was one, I think, called the algebra of happiness. Yeah, I read that one. I recommend that one too, the algebra of happiness. The New York Times called him the Howard Stern of the business world. He's a fascinating guy. Really? All right, Donald, I love you
too. I had such a great time this weekend, man. Thank you so much.
I'm glad you came to Vegas. Thank you for saying yes, even though it was. I just learned that it was only so you
that
didn't
was
get written
what
out of
my
Scrubs.
wife thought would happen. You know how dark she gets. She goes real dark with it.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm glad you came, even though it was out of fear of there being a Scrubs version without you.
That wasn't me. That was
all right.
5, 6, 7, 8
stories about a show we made about a bunch of docs and nurses